And so, yes, we've been chatting a few minutes, but this is a good place to start because I wanted to, as we go into module two, um, just to reflect back this whole first module. I think I've gone maybe into too much information with information. And that's what this first module was about, was the information that we consume, right? So the first week we talked about the basic ways that we developed our story from the time we were born and all the different layers of the things that just were a part of our life as we grew. They developed the story of who we were, our environment, our families, our history, those kind of things. And then we looked more at the Enneagram, particularly, and we did what each type focuses on determines what each type misses. So when we focus on that one thing, what is it that we're missing? So we've gone through that. That's a piece of information. Then we looked at our childhood wounding messages and had reflections about those. And these are all bits of information that we've been gathering. And then last week we did the spiral. So we kind of had a dip in there, but I think, week 4, we did what each type perceives and to be wrong in the world, right? Or what each type is lacking. And we're going to go over that in just a second. But I'm so happy about moving into the next phase because this is where the work to me really begins. So again, I'm just touching on some of the things that are ways we've gathered information. You guys could list 1,000 more things because they're particular to your growing up years. Even in, different countries, or not even just different countries, different parts of this country truly were influential. I joke about when I grew up in Texas, we took Texas history. So when it came to like world history or specifically geography, Texas was very proud of everything about the state. So, oh my goodness, we studied that a lot. When I graduated very young. I graduated high school when I was 16, went to college when I was 17. So I was very young anyways, but I was clueless about, I didn't even know where states were. Some of them, those that were right around us. But my influence was so heavy in Texas pride that when I moved to Georgia, I'd say, oh, we did this in Texas. We did this in Texas. And in Texas, we did it this way. And a friend of mine finally said, if you don't like Georgia, why don't you just move back to Texas? I was like, oh, okay. Well,
Fine.
what?
You say, I'm trying. I'm trying.
Yeah, right. You know how I forget. Yes, you guys are in Texas. They're like, yep, truth. But it was a part of my being, my heart. That was a big influence. So I'm just saying there are so many more factors that you guys can come up with. The whole part of this is, as we move into transformation, again, is to question, is this who I am? Am I the one? And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So now see, Megan popped out. We were going to.
Oh, yeah, I just had to check on the kids. Make sure.
I know, I'm kidding. She's like, she's going to ask questions now. I know she is. So maybe you've forgotten week 4, but I was just going to ask, the week 4 handout was what each type perceives as lacking in the world. And so the question I have for that, really there were 2 questions down at the bottom, but so the question is, how do you try to compensate for this perceived lack? So for a type 1, if you see that the world just lacks goodness and justice, well, how do you compensate for it? But when you can't make everything right in the world, how does that affect you as an identity? Do you see that as, this is my job in this world? Or is this, a gift I have of being able to notice that and do something productive with it. And that's Mary, type 7, 3. And I had a wonderful session with Megan. We had a private, typing, and I feel like she feels more at home with the type 4. She had thought she was a 5 for a while, but that's one of those places that we can get really confused in those things. But when it's home, it feels like home.
Yeah, it's been interesting in the last week since y'all talked to process that. And, Megan's kind of been learning and reading and studying. It's been really insightful.
I hope so. I see so much in her writing. She seems to emanate from the beauty sphere.
Yeah.
If we're talking about beauty, truth, and goodness, where I'm over in the truth sphere, you would be in the goodness sphere, Lee, and that beauty sphere just seems to feel right.
Yeah.
But I know she's going to do some more reading in it. So did any of y'all have any feedback on that, or has 2 weeks been too long? We don't have to.
I can say a thing. I actually missed our time together that week, but you sent me the stuff and the prompts, right? But I did spend some time with the prompts, and for me, it does more frequently feel like an obligation than a gift, right? And when I think that obviously I see plenty wrong, right? Like there's plenty of examples of the things that could be improved any place. And on a good day, I have more 7 energy around that. Like, here's what's possible, right? I have ideas and hope and momentum and energy to put toward it, right? But at some point, if other people aren't doing it or my efforts aren't working, then that lower side of 4 can come in, and it does feel like I'm the only one. And no one else cares, and this is how it's going to be forever. Like just a very fatalistic, isolated place that then eventually flips back into me being angry, right? And frustrated by, if we had all just tried a little bit harder, it could have been so much better, and yet here we are sucking. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, that part, and sort of going back to what you were saying about the beginning module, and we focus on determining what we miss. When I have all of that momentum going toward what isn't right, then I discount anything that is right. It's like it gets some kind of crappy partial credit. Yeah, but
yeah, that's great, but
yeah, fine, but look at this problem, right? I mean,
yeah,
and that's part of the work, right? Is learning to equally value what is already right enough, and appreciating that, giving it the same weight. And yeah.
And you made a very brilliant observation in that whole thing, is when you can go to, a place of planning and seeing the good things and all of that. And then when going to the lower side of your stress number, and then nobody cares, everything and all the negative. But what you said is you migrate right back to the anger. And that's such a developed sense of the Enneagram, is knowing, yeah, I see that the world is lacking. It's up to me. This is who I am. And that's what we're trying to determine is this my identity? Am I the one? Am I the only one who can take care of this? And to fold in that the anger, let me let Ricky in, that the anger plays such a role in even this. Hi, Ricky. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Hey, Ricky.
Hey,
Yes. And that is the whole point, to be able to have that moment of, I know what I'm doing. I see it. I don't like it. I don't like any part of it. I'm angry about it, but you acknowledge, you know it. This is what's happening. And when we know what's going on in our body, in our mind, then we can take action and let it go. Just let it go. What would the world be if I didn't take care of this thing today? Mary, do you want to reflect on type 7? You don't have to.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking about the fact that, yes, I absolutely think the world is lacking in satisfaction and support. Maybe not so much provision, but that has come out in my life in, especially as my instinctual drive being the one-on-one sexual, that I go to great lengths to try to get people to open up, and I love to share deeply with people. And like I got involved years ago in Celebrate Recovery. It's like a Christian 12-step group.
Oh.
But I wanted to lead that because you make a commitment for 12 weeks and everything that's said there is in private, and it's like a structured way to get into some deep conversation with people. And so I really thrive on that, and I think it gives satisfaction to people, and definitely to me. And being the leader, I could like play one of my favorite songs before we started every time and talk about that or whatever. So I've seen that in different roles I've had, like with the Christian Universalist Association, when I was the board of directors for that. Whenever they asked me to lead something, it was very one-on-one sharing, communicating. And that's where I think people get real support. And I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. So I don't know if it's identity or just, I guess it kind of is, because with COVID, I haven't done any of that. And I'm really feeling the lack. So there is definitely a lack of satisfaction in this world. We need more fun.
I
And we
agree.
need more sharing. So that's what I reflected on about that.
And as a type 7, I am a social type 7. So I understand that, and that lack of. And it's like when Lee was saying, when she sees what's happening, she goes into that anger. And although I didn't spell that out on this form here, on this journal prompt, that is a big part of it, is when we get in that lacking mode, what we see is lacking in the world, then our whatever triad we're in, like Leah's in the anger triad and I'm in the fear. So the fear kicks in big for me. And it's like, then, and Leah and I have opposite directions with our wings, with our arrows. And so conversely, I get really structured. I go to a 1, I can find that anger, but it's really a fear that motivates me to feel like if I don't do this, we're gonna starve. We're gonna run out of all the money, and we never have, ever. But there is that thing in the back of my head. And again, I can go back to what we talked about earlier, and that is my my thinking around money is I've had to do a lot of work with that, a lot of work. So in addition to having that as a foundational thing from my upbringing, and it wasn't that we lacked money, but there was a real, we didn't waste. We found bargains on everything. We got to do some really great stuff, but it was that, hold on tight to it. And when the bills came in, they were paid that day. My dad would pay, just a lot of things around money. So add that to lack of provision is my thing. And I'm in the fear triad. So I see all that and have a lot of my, therapy has had to be with questioning, is this true? If you're not the one to do this, will you be taken care of? Are you the only one in the world that can make this happen? Blah, 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 blah. To say, no, that is a false narrative that I have let play over and over and over. This is what we're talking about, these stories that play in our head. And I'm very excited about what we're talking about next week, but I'm going to save that. So, Clay, Megan, Ricky, you guys wanna jump in on those, on the reflections?
Yeah, so the way it was written on there was, see the lack of, what do you say, value, hope, value, and doing. It's just, that's a really interesting combination of things, because I think I naturally, the hope and value may not be really where I focus in, but definitely on that lack of doing. And like I said, I've kind of, like, in some ways built a whole business around it. And actually it's really interesting to look at that, because it's actually the way I even kind of market myself is I basically come alongside a visionary. So somebody who has that vision, and I basically bring the doing and make it happen. And it's been a really good pairing. So I can see when it works well, it's really good. But I can also see that in the times that I've been in a lot of stress, it's primarily coming from, and I'm the only one who can do it. It's been interesting to sort of put this kind of to the test. So one of my clients right now is actually, it's the first time I've ever like parted ways with a client, and they're in the next few months they're gonna go a different route, and I'm out of the picture. And it's really interesting because it is I've even said from the beginning with them in this transition process, like, I'm here, I'm going to be available to answer any questions you have, but I'm not going to manage or script the transition process, because if you're hiring somebody else to do what I do, then I'm going to trust that they know the questions to ask, that they know the systems to build and maintain and all that stuff. But I can sort of look back and say, I think a few years ago, I wouldn't have even thought that. I would have just thought nobody else can do this. It's just, I'm the only one who can make this happen. So it has to be me. And so it's been a putting to the test of that, that dynamic, and, certainly being aware that it's at play. But that awareness allowing me to pause and say, I know where I'm tempted to, to sort of take this by the reins. And it will oftentimes come across as being for someone else's benefit, but really, because deep down it's like, yeah, but you couldn't do this without me. That's really what's going on. And that's a lot of the ego work in there.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So as you're going through all of that, the temptation or the instinct a lot of times with a type 3 will be to see that my value is in the value that I bring to you. And because you are in the, whatever, it is called the shame triad, but I've heard it called sorrow. And I'm not
Both are
discounting
good.
that. I like
Yeah.
that because it's like shame is a hard thing sometimes, but the tendency can be to see that I've done all this great work and now my value is shot.
Mhm.
And I'm not loved, I'm not appreciated, I'm not valued.
Yeah.
And because this is where we claim our identity, is in the different aspects that we hold on to for love and security. And when they're threatened, and even in parting ways, on friendly terms, and I'm not asking you to divulge that at all, that is the type 3 challenge. Is, am I worthless now? Is my whole identity shot because
Right.
I've worked to do this? I'm good at what I do, and now you're walking away, and I'm obviously a failure. And
Yeah.
who's going to love me now?
Right.
So
Well, yeah, I mean, even just to like make it even simpler, because I mean, that has, in some ways, it's been such a long, drawn out process that some of those emotions have had time to sort of come and go. And now it's a little more, now I'm quite honestly, I'm relieved to be done.
good.
But there was some of that maybe, sorry. But I find it would happen to me even just in small things. So like even if there was a perception that I made a mistake, I felt like, man, I've got to correct the image here. And again, it's complicated because it's also tied to like my job. Like I have a contract with these people to, perform a certain service.
Right. I don't minimize that at all.
Yeah, but there is an identity there as well. And something too that, it was kind of a carryover from when, I think after you and Megan talked, and she was kind of, it sounded like a lot of what y'all talked about too, because, the difference between a 4 and a 5, 4 and a 5 is the heart or the head type. And so it kind of like brought up conversations around the heart type and all that stuff, and the idea of compartmentalization. And it made me realize that as a 3, as a heart type, that compartmentalization is really hard. And it's really interesting. So talking to the person who's taken over this role for me, it's another, bookkeeper, CPA kind of person. And she was just very like matter of fact, just like, oh yeah, well, I'm not gonna be able to do such and such or whatever. And I was just kind of like, golly, man, they're not gonna like hearing that. But it made me realize, like, because so much of what I base what I do on it's in a lot of ways, it's not compartmentalizing, like I'm not very, it's like I keep the books and deal with the finances in a very heart way, which is weird. But
3s have they sit in an interesting place in the heart triangle.
yeah, well, like what Megan said, there's just very few boundaries. And so like, I can't just say,
Right.
no, sorry, that's, whatever, it's going to take me time, or it's going to be late or whatever. Like I can't, it's very hard for me to just let it go. But just being aware of that has been really, really, really valuable, because it's allowed me just to see, it doesn't necessarily make it go away or change it or undo it, but it allows me kind of in that place of awareness to sort of look at it as a separate thing and say, okay, that's operating over there, but the true self, that's not the true me. But I can sort of observe that from a distance, and I recognize that it's at play, but I can create some distance from within myself from that. And even just that pause, that awareness of it has been really good. So I'm saying that, and kind of as a bringing together of that, what I see is the lack of the doing. I think in my strength, I do bring that as a gift, but I recognize where it's very easy for me to cross that boundary into, and I'm the only one who can do it.
Yes.
So that awareness has been really key. And then to kind of bring that heart type in, of kind of seeing that, it's not only I'm the only one that can do it, but also if I don't get this resolved, I can't stop thinking about it. You know, I can't, it's all of me or none of me. Like there's no piece of me. And so again, just being aware of those has been really valuable. So,
And you,
yeah.
you have a lot of very interesting terminology when you're describing this, because threes, they do process with their heart. They take it in with their heart, but they can't let that emotion get too bog them down. You can't be too attached to it because
Yeah, we got stuff to do.
you put those emotions aside to get the work done.
Right.
So in a way, it is compartmentalized, and you have to.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like Mary and I have to access our hearts at some point, and we do. But it's did you raise your hand, Lee?
No, that was just, I was voting me too.
Okay.
I have to access my heart.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Okay. Anybody else before we move on? Ricky? Megan?
Yeah, this one's a hard one for me. I don't know if it's just where I am or if it's specific to being a 4. I'm kind of new to being a 4, so I'm still learning.
Yeah, I can understand.
I don't feel like there's a lot lacking in the, I guess I would change how it was. I would say maybe a lack of perception of significance and originality and authenticity. Like I feel like there already is tons of significance and originality and authenticity. I feel like there's maybe a lack of us being aware of it and people seeing it. And then I also feel much more wrapped up in my own interior world than the exterior world, and thinking about my own significance and originality and authenticity. So yeah, I wasn't quite sure. Yeah.
You can sit with that one. Like I said, Clay was saying while you were gone, you're just stepping into this space. That's a big transition. Like, whoa, I was trying to fit in this 5 space. I was trying to process from that. And now I feel this. I feel like even the words you say about a lack of perception of authenticity. So when you see that people don't recognize this in the world, the question is how do you make up for that perception? And I'm not going to, you know, if you want to sit with that a little bit, do some more for introspection, but you already speak a language that says, no, it's there, but people don't see it. Right? Is that what you were saying? That there's not a lack of originality and significance in the world, but there's a lack of perception of it?
Yeah. Because I feel like there's times, when the veil is lifted a little bit and you just catch just the magic of it, I think part of my frustration is I want to live in that veil lifted up world all the time. And it's usually just little snippets.
That is not 5 language.
And wanting other people to feel that too, and getting frustrated when the people around me don't seem to have an interest in that, the magic side of the world,
So there, you're already bringing it out. This is, how do I feel when others don't see that? Others don't see the magic. I see it. I know it's there. I see it occasionally, and it hurts. I want to live from beyond the veil.
Yeah.
That's the question. How do you make up for that lack of perception? Okay, Ricky.
Wow. I've been working with my six, definitely. And I can, by listening to you guys, I can really relate. Uh, what I believe that the world is lacking is love and understanding and, and unity. And it seems that everybody is in their own little cliques, wanting to or not wanting to. And they're always fighting, trying to prove that they're right. And to me, it's like, can't you guys accept each other? I mean, really, can each other group can accept each other? Probably that part of it, that's what made me become a universalist myself. But then by doing that, I found other people who weren't agreeing with me, and I found myself apart from. And this is something that it really hurts. I mean, being apart, being from groups that at one time I held dearly, because that's what I look for. I look for unity, understanding towards myself. Uh, then the interesting thing is that I heard Mary, you said that you used to belong to a 12-step Christian group. I used to belong to a 12-step group. And to me, it was fundamental to do things by the book. Oh boy, that the group hated me for that. And when I used to belong to this Christian group specifically, I want things to be done by the book, and boy, I was hated by that. And but I mean, if you had to, I mean, that was, to me, that was what gave these groups meaning. I mean, their true meaning, and what have you. And when I felt that people were like looking at me and saying, "Who do you think you are?" I said, "Well, have you read the book?" "No, you haven't." "I have read the book. I know what's needed. I know what you need for this group or whatever needs to have unity." And I ended up being pointed at and having to leave. And then I said, okay, now I don't have a group, and I don't belong anywhere. And that still striving for that unity, final unity, that I have faith that will happen in the long run, when there will be understanding. But that's where I'm standing right now, trying to understand that no, there's still not unity. There are people going here, there, and everywhere, not necessarily understanding or accepting each other. And what I need to do is just sit there and observe, and understand and accept that no, this world is still not united, and it's so freaking scary, because I see the world in shambles at times, or different groups in shambles, Christian groups in shambles. I mean, hey, Christians who hate each other, religious people who
There
hate
are
each other.
Buddhists that don't like each other
No, definitely. Well, my
because people
I
are
come
people.
from a Christian background, or Judeo-Christian background, because I'm Jewish, a Judeo-Christian background. But yeah, I mean, you find Buddhists who kill other people because they're not Buddhists, or because they're not in their political perspective or whatever. And this world is scary and needs love, and I have to understand that I am not the one who's gonna give it. It has to come from up above, and people understanding where they're at, and finally understanding that, hey, you need to do something, but it doesn't come from me, because I need to be united towards myself, and learn to take care of myself, and learn to see who are the people around me who with whom I can have this relationship of accepting, and them accepting me, and be happy with what there is right now, even though sometimes it's scary because I don't see the light at the other side of the tunnel. And I'm talking about worldwide. I don't,
That
And
is,
I'm learning to understand that no, that I cannot have all the answers. I mean, nobody has all the answers yet, and that should be okay with me. You know.
it's, I hear so much of your six coming out. And again,
Oh yeah.
I don't like to just type people and say, oh, I see your, oh, I see this, and I see that. That's it. This is what we're talking about here. So you use the word, you know, it's so scary. And now anybody can say that because there's a lot of scary things going on. But knowing what you're going through right now in this searching for, you say the word community, and I understand that a lot of us are searching for a community because we've been through these very difficult transitions where we
Mhm.
were told we're not welcome there anymore. But
Mhm.
as for type sixes who are such loyalists,
Mhm.
there's such, when they find the team or the support system that they feel not scared, safe, if that's a, I can use that word instead of being
Right.
not scared, it's my safety. Who is my safety? Who's my community that I can count on? And I thought I could count on this. And now I was loyal to a T. I'm the one who was doing, and now you're telling me I'm not. And so the world of absolutely has to seem very chaotic for you right now because
Mhm.
sixes are great systems people. They're great
Mhm.
team people. They like that support system, not just
Mhm.
like it, they crave it. But what I
Yeah.
heard you saying, it, which is the big step for type sixes, is to say, I have this in me. The world may be lacking unity. That's a fact. The world may be scary. I can see that for sure. And so when you feel like I'm losing my balance because I don't know where my safety net is, I hear you saying, I'm turning inward. I'm turning to the divine support, the
Mhm.
divine safety net of the universe. And that's what I'm talking about, that we're looking at right now, are the pieces of what I perceive and what I can say. I'm not, my identity does not revolve around everybody else being my safety net, me having all the answers, me doing all the doing, all of the different things that all of us are seeing. It does not take away from what our gifts are.
Mhm.
It's our attachment to our identification with them.
Mhm. Exactly.
Okay, it is 8 minutes till 9. I thought, well, I'm going to end this really quick because my slides are not very long, but I want to go through them because I think this is a great way to wrap up this part and move into where we're getting into the radical transformation. So if you're ready and will allow me to go ahead and share this, kind of move that over. We are in module 2. And so this is really Metamorphosis. We've all grown up with the story. We've read the little, I don't know, maybe you read it to your kids, The Hungry Caterpillar. It doesn't exactly tell the story. It's not a pretty picture. It's a really sad when you think about it. From one thing, it's such a, I'm having to say goodbye to something that was who I had my identity in, but knowing this is the nature of nature. So I'm just going to go through these kind of quickly. The chrysalis stage. What I love about this is I always grew up thinking that a butterfly spun its cocoon, right? Well, butterflies don't have a cocoon, they're chrysalis. And moths and silkworms are the ones that spin a cocoon. What is so amazing about this is, as we've talked about, the caterpillar that ate and ate and ate and molted and molted, ate and molted, ate and molted. When it comes time, when he's reached the peak of consuming, he just sheds that outer skin. like it says, like a snake, the hard skin or the hard shell that's underneath is the caterpillar. It's its own body. And that blows my mind. Again, I love science. I love this whole process here, but it's its own body. I am such a form at this point. All of this that I have consumed my whole life has led me to this, and it's been necessary. I had to find my place in this world and have my defenses that worked great for me in all of this developmental stage. I had to have the things that protected me. I had to shed this skin as I outgrew it, and I gathered more and more information. So the beautiful process is needed. I'm not sitting here to saying, now you've just, all of this stuff that you've developed, it was all wrong and you should drop all of it. Nope. It's when Doug was talking about the spiral last week, he used the term transcend and include. And there are things that we developed along the way that are such beautiful parts, but the chrysalis is not a resting state. And so the idea that the caterpillar goes in there and just kind of goes to sleep for a while, I know this is what we grew up with as children, because you can't tell this to children. It's traumatizing to say, let me tell you what radical transformation truly includes. Radical transformation is action. There's something amazing going on in there. So how radical is it? Yes, we went through this a couple of weeks ago where I talked about the imaginal disc. Let me just go over it, just reinforce this image in your mind of what this transformation involves. So I can just read it. First, the caterpillar digests itself. That's not something you want to tell your third graders. So he releases this enzyme and he dissolves himself. The tissues that were the caterpillar turn into this soupy, gross stuff because he literally surrenders his form. Okay, but the contents of the pupa are not entirely an amorphous mess. So when we talked about the imaginal cells, I'm just repeating this, but certain highly organized groups of cells known as imaginal discs survive the digestive process. This is mind-blowing. This is just, if there's not a consciousness behind creation, I don't know how you could think otherwise. But before hatching, when a caterpillar is still developing inside its egg, it grows the imaginal discs for each of the adult body parts it will need as a mature butterfly. For the eyes and the wings and the legs. Again, the caterpillar is not saying, I'm going to become better at being a caterpillar. And all of the form that I've developed until now, if I'll just do it better, if I'll just sprout some wings, then I can take all of this and then just emphasize it. Nope, he goes through this dissolving of what he doesn't need anymore. But those imaginal discs, the imago, the image, is there from the beginning. And I believe with all my heart, we are nature. Nature is our teacher. We have all of this in us. It is not in becoming better at being and fill in the blank. Your type, my gender, my role in this world, any of those things. It's in saying, who am I underneath the defense mechanisms that I've developed? The fears that I have, who am I underneath all of these? And I love that word, amorphous. It is without a clearly defined shape or form. All of this that we've been talking about in this first module is form. What are these forms that we are attached to? Most of our forms are the beliefs that we have. Our thinking, our behaviors, these are our forms. And that's what we've been doing, is trying to identify the forms. So if you are feeling like you're not sure of who you are right now, like you're floating in a soup of messy uncertainty, breathe and give thanks. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Remember your imago. The true you can only be revealed when you surrender to the process. It's not easy. I know that sitting with these questions and going against what's been our nature for so long sometimes leaves you feeling like I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. And that's a wonderful place to be. Okay, we are going to just go briefly over this next slide or couple, because this is really the last part of the Enneagram content that we're going to look at deeply. We could, like I've said, I love teaching the Enneagram. I know I veered off and typed and talked about some of it, our triads and things, because it really is. It's such a wonderful study that I could just go on and on with. But I want us to kind of keep focused on what we are looking at here, and that is, what are the forms that we're attached to? So let's go into the core motivation for each type. I'm going to show you this slide, and we'll just kind of go through it quickly, because this is actually your journal prompt. This slide is actually your journal prompt. So I'm just going to say that this is what we're introducing this week, and not to go over it entirely because I want you to sit with it. But I do want you to, if you can, look at the other ones too, because all of us know somebody that's these other types. Maybe they don't know they haven't, decided to look into the Enneagram, but a lot of people who you can see in their behavior, they respond like a 2. Let's see, we don't have any 8s in the group, but I bet all of us know an 8 or a 9. My husband's a 9, so this has been such a beautiful thing, learning this for our marriage. It has been life-saving. It truly is. So this is the core motivations for each type. You'll see them. You probably already know them. And again, we all have these things in us. It's not like type 9s don't want to be good and right and have integrity. They do. So do 2s and 3s and all the way through. We all do. We all want to succeed in what we do. Even Eeyore, oh, well, I didn't, but he wants to. Everybody wants to be successful in what they do and feel valuable. But again, one of these resonates with each of us more strongly and deeply. So the questions, good. I didn't put the questions there. So the questions will be on your journal prompt, but it's revolving around this. But again, like I'm saying, motivations, like instincts, are an inherent part of our nature. They are neither good nor bad. So don't look at these and go, oh, this is a bad thing. No, we all have these. It's how are we identified with them? How do we attach to defend it? It's really the defense mechanisms. How do we build that wall of defense around us? For me, to avoid pain, that be satisfied. Yeah, that's the truth too, but to avoid pain. So if I live my life in just trying to shield myself from pain, then I'm cutting out half of life. Nobody gets through it without pain. The question is, how do I drop that defense and allow myself to feel the pain, feel the grief, and not be attached to, this is who I am. This is my motivation. So they're neither good nor bad. They're how we understood survival and acceptance in our formative years. Oh yeah, here's where I put the questions. So these will be the questions that will be on your journal prompts. And it's all about attachment to identity. So we've gone through form. We're talking about transformation right now. We're just getting into that. What does this mean? How do I release? How do I dissolve these forms that are who I have believed I am? How do I even begin to think about what in the world is formless? but the word transformation, it's a change of form or nature of a thing or person into a completely different one. Sorry, it was off my screen. A completely different one. That sounds incredibly scary, especially if you kind of like who you are. Well, it's not to say you got to give up being who you are. I want you to know who you are is perfect. What stands in the way of the truth of who you are is what we're trying to say. I'm going to shed that. I'm going to release that. I'm going to dissolve that. Remember, it's not the form itself that keeps us from evolving. It's our attachment to this as our identity. Our identity, identity, identity. It's who I am. Is it? That's the question. And so I want to end with a quote, which will be our entree into next week. How many of y'all are familiar with Byron Katie? Yay! Oh, come see, comes up. Well, I'm going to email you. It's a part of one of her books that is just wonderful. She has it as a PDF download. She just gives everything away. But I'm going to, if you have time, look at it. If not, we're going to go into briefly what her work is. And it's called The Work. I'm not certified and I'm not here to teach you her process, but I do want to introduce the 4 questions that she uses, because these just play beautifully with everything that we've been talking about. So her quote that I'm going to end with is, "It's not our thoughts, but our attachment to our thoughts that causes suffering. Attaching to a thought means believing that it's true without inquiring." That's it. A belief is a thought that we've been attaching to often for years. So what I said earlier, that most of the things that we're questioning are not really sometimes there are behaviors, but it's at the core, it's our thoughts that manifest as our behaviors. So it's always our beliefs about ourselves, our belief about everything that we've talked about, lacking in the world, childhood messages, identities, and attaching to them as our identity. So that quote is by Byron Katie. We're going to talk about her next week. And I'm going to stop. Let's see. I always get, stop screen share. There we go. I couldn't get back to us. Okay, I'm so glad that we had the discussion. That's the meat of this, is being able to share from our perspectives. We didn't go too long. Are there any questions that you want to ask out loud? If not, we're good, but you're always welcome. Okay, but I just wait. Please email me. We got an email last week after the spiral that if you read the newsletter, that's what this community is, I think, is to share these questions. And Ricky, what have you? What question?
Oh, well, I'm an only child. And one of the things that well, at least I could do certain ways and certain times was I just either throw a tantrum and get my way, or try to be as smooth as I could and get my way. And this is certainly, I don't like it one bit. And it's like, no, I know I have to accept this thing, but I don't wanna, but I have to like it anyways. So it's not something that I have to do, but I get to do it. Otherwise, I'll not be able to grow. So I just wanted to share that.
Oh, sorry, not sorry, as they say.
No, it's fine. I have to accept it. Otherwise, I'll shrivel out and die, and I don't need that.
oh, there's so much waiting to be
Right.
revealed, right?
Yes, yes.
It's the not knowing that's the scary part, because we know this, right? We
Mhm.
know what we do. Even when it doesn't work and we get in trouble, we're comfortable. That's the weird thing about deciding to go on a transformative journey. It's that
Mhm.
tendency to go, I'm just going to go back.
Mhm.
On a very depressing note, it's why so many people in abusive relationships just go back, because it's
Yes.
familiar.
Mhm. Right.
Deciding to break out of that and sometimes be in totally not knowing, I don't even know where I'm going to sleep, right? That it's not that it's the same, but when we are giving up the familiar
Mhm.
and knowing that there's something better, the familiar is just so easy. It's that rut in our brain where the thoughts have been carved out and we're trying to like move the river and form a new path. So I'm on this with you guys. I feel like the younger you can do this, and you who have children at home, are such gifts for your children to do this now. I look back and think, oh, if I'd only know. But
Mhm.
when we know better, we try to do better. Thank
Right.
you. Thank you for the hearts.
Thank you.
I didn't say namaste in the beginning, but the spirit in me recognized the spirit in each one of you. And I love you guys so much. So thank you. And email me anytime.